Everyone, my name is Whitney McAniff, and I'm over here at Google headquarters in Mountain View, California, joined by my colleague, Tanisha Hospodale. Thanks so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
Cool, and we're here for the fourth and final installment in our series about common issues that agencies face with AdWords and how to resolve them. Today, we're going to be talking about Merchant Center policies and suspensions. Actually, one of my preferred topics.
Yeah, there's a lot of information in this deck.
Get excited. Cool. So let's go ahead, and just a quick reminder, this is a live event, which means that you can add any questions in the comment section on the community page. While we're doing this, we will stop and take those questions partway through and at the end point. And also, if you add them later on, we'll go back and definitely make sure to answer them. Same thing with YouTube comments if you're watching this later on YouTube. So definitely feel free to make this a little bit of a dialogue. Yeah. Don't necessarily ask account-specific questions, but if you have some more general ones, we're always happy to address them. Okay, so here's a quick look at today's agenda. It's jam-packed, but I'm hoping that it's going to be really actionable for everybody watching today. That's the end goal. Yeah. We want this to be key takeaways and kind of key troubleshooting steps that you can take if you are faced with a client who is a shopping client and is running into Merchant Center issues.
Or considering shopping, then you can hit it head on.
Exactly. It's a really good point too. Okay, so we're just going to start with a really quick overview of the Merchant Center review process. Before we go into this, I want to make a note that Merchant Center policies exist for the sake of the user. We're not doing this for fun. It's not that much fun on our end. It really is to provide the best online shopping experience for any user on Google Shopping. And we do enforce all of our policies equally and do our best to do so. So everyone's beholden to the same policies. I know that that's a common question that comes up. So that's something important to keep in mind here.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so this is a really quick overview of how the review process works. There's a lot on this slide, but we'll talk it through. Essentially, every Merchant Center account goes through constant, routine policy checks. These are for things like data quality issues, like price mismatches or things like that. And there are policies like, are you selling tobacco products or weapons? These happen constantly. Yeah. There's no kind of regular cadence for it, but just basically assume that if you're running a Merchant Center account, it's getting reviewed all the time.
Yeah, and because it's getting reviewed all the time, that's why you get the warning for most of the suspensions prior to your account being suspended. So in this process, if there's a warning and an issue is found, you'll be alerted. Yep. If not, nothing will happen. So you should be good to go.
Exactly. So if you're not hearing anything, that is good news. Yeah. I do want to make a note that not all suspension reasons are given warning periods. Some egregious ones, and there are some obvious examples such as selling child porn, for instance, is a classic example. That is just going to be an immediate suspension. Right. So the warning period is in 99.9% of issues going to be there.
Yeah.
Cool. So you can actually find out if you've been warned in two places in your account. The technical contact will actually receive an email saying, hey, you've been warned. But if you're not that contact, you can access it either in the dashboard or the diagnostics tab within the Merchant Center account. And there's going to be a big yellow bar at the top that says you've been warned for it. And once the account's been suspended, it'll turn to red. Right. So you will be able to see very clearly what on earth is going on. And once a warning's been issued and you've seen what's happening, you do go into the warning period, generally 30 days.
Yeah, I would say 30 days. And you can always call us if you guys don't know what's going on, why you've been warned, if you think there's been a mistake. I will definitely take another look. And again, that's phone, email, or chat. You can support Merchant Center in all those methods. I've gotten a lot of questions this week, like over chat, to ask if we support Merchant Center, and we do. So don't hesitate to get in contact with us.
Exactly. This team supports anything, really.
And everything.
So once you're in that warning period, you generally have 30 days. Now, the email that tells you about the warning will let you know when that suspension warning period ends. So please pay attention to that. You will be reviewed in the 24 hours to 36 hours after that warning period ends. So if it says it ends, July 20th, you're going to get reviewed on the 21st. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And re-uploading the feed doesn't trigger the suspension period to go away. The review is going to happen on the day
Right.
after the period ends. So that's another thing to keep in mind is unlike like an ad disapproval
Mhm.
where changing the ad resubmits it for review, there's no way to automatically do that. For some types of suspensions, like price or tax and shipping is
Mhm.
actually the ones, you can actually do it within the Merchant Center account and resubmit for review yourself. Just check out those warning boxes. They'll let you know what's going on.
It's a lot quicker that way.
It is quite a bit faster. On this second policy review, so basically a month after you receive the warning email, if we don't find any more of the policy violations that you received the warning email for, we're going to go ahead and lift it.
Right.
And if we do find them, you're going to get suspended. One other thing to note is that if you get warned for something, like let's say you get warned for tax issues, and when we review your account, we find that there were no tax issues, but now we're finding shipping issues. You're going to get the suspension warning lifted for tax and receive a new warning for shipping. So you're not necessarily going to go down for it, but you will find yourself back in that review cycle. So it's really important if you're in this suspension cycle to just be as careful as possible.
Agreed.
Okay, so like this says, what if your account gets suspended? Don't panic. It's not that bad.
Yeah, we can help you out.
Yeah. It's basically like the suspension warning cycle. You just need to fix all the issues and then you're good.
Good to go.
Yeah.
You can remove the products.
Yep.
You can fix them. It's up to you. But you just need to make sure that it abides by our policies and you're good to go.
That's another really important thing to keep in mind is if you are in a situation where you're being warned for something that is technically difficult to execute, like it involves changes to the landing pages for products or fundamental changes to the data feed, like Tanisha said, you can always submit a smaller data feed of products that you know are clear and good to go per our policies, get the account back up, and then slowly put products back into the data feed as they're fixed. So really, Merchant Center suspensions are just a matter of, am I able to get the feed resolved in time, or can I submit a smaller one in the meanwhile? Cool. Okay, so let's move on to tax and shipping, two of our favorites. Something we see a lot, but actually really the most straightforward ones.
Yeah. People think it's really confusing, but it's not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah. So essentially, the price that the user pays when they add their item to the cart and ship it to their home or their business, wherever they're shipping it, needs to be the price for tax and shipping that they see on the shopping ad. It just needs to be a one-to-one equal thing. One caveat to this is that if you're in a situation where you need to kind of guesstimate the shipping costs for a user, overestimate rather than underestimate.
Yeah. You'll get the warning for underestimating, but you won't get it for overestimating.
Correct. So providing accurate shipping information is essential for a great customer experience. If a user sees that something is free shipping on an ad and then they end up paying shipping, they're probably not going to buy it. It's bad for you, it's bad for the user, and we want to provide them with the best kind of comparison shopping view possible on those shopping ads. So tax settings are super easy to set. I would recommend doing tax on the account level. Now, for tax and shipping, you can do it on the item level.
Yeah. It's just a lot easier at the account level.
Yeah. It's pretty convoluted. Oh, I lost. So let me go ahead and pull the deck back up. Okay, cool. So tax settings are set on the account level for the most part. It's very straightforward. You either do or don't charge taxes in certain states.
Yeah.
So if you don't charge taxes anywhere in the US, you're one of those businesses that eats the tax, you could go ahead and actually just not define anything.
Yeah.
Leave it completely blank and we'll default it to 0. If there are states that you charge taxes in, you can either choose to do a flat rate tax, if that's what you do on your website, or use what's known as the Google determined rate.
Yeah. Remember to leave it blank if you're not doing taxes, like no spaces, hidden characters, anything like that, because you will get suspended and we will be unable to see why.
Yep. So if you are setting it on the account level, I tend to recommend, unless you know that you use a flat rate tax, just use the Google determined rate. I have never seen that differ from the actual regional tax rates. So although it's not like technically the government's rate, it really equates to that. Again, we can't guarantee the accuracy of that, but I've never seen anyone come into any problems with that. So highly recommend doing that. So shipping can be a little convoluted. You can also set this on the account level. I, again, highly recommend doing it on the account level.
Yeah.
The only exceptions to this are if you have a certain class of products. Let's say, you sell furniture and anything over a certain weight has different shipping, then you can set it on the item level. But with shipping, there are lots of different ways to do it. You can do a single rate, like all shipping is $5.99 for items under $100 and $7.99 for items over $100. You can do a rate table. You can also use carrier calculated rates, which is awesome.
Yeah.
If you're using like UPS or FedEx and you're just using their shipping rates, go ahead and let them do the work for you. Easy, yeah. I can also create custom shipping rules. There's a lot that you can play around with shipping. I understand some merchants have very straightforward shipping methods. Some have very complicated shipping methods. Maybe you're shipping frozen goods across the country and it's weather variable. There's a ton that goes into it. Just play around with shipping.
I'd say probably like 70% of the users I work with use rate tables, just because you can do a lot of different combinations for different things that you offer. So if you want to try that one first, that may be your best bet.
Yep. And don't get overwhelmed by the shipping options. Again, overestimating is much more preferable to underestimating. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Okay, so price and availability mismatches. This one I see a ton.
Yeah, all the time, and it's really an easy fix.
Yeah.
It's like something quick, either like the website and the data feed don't match up, something really quick.
And so basically what this means is if the price that you're submitting in your data feed, so the price that's showing in the ad, doesn't match the actual price that the user pays. Same thing with availability. If you say it's in stock in your data feed, but I go to your website and it's out of stock, it's a bad user experience. You're going to get dinged for that. You really want to be mindful of a few things here. One is you can take advantage of the sale price attribute. If you have multiple prices on your page, it's $20 normally, down to $14.99 this week, use that sale price attribute in the data feed to show that to us.
Yeah, a lot of people don't use this, surprisingly, and then they run into this issue. And this is like a really quick way for you to make sure you never run into that issue. If it's on sale, use the sale price.
So you can also set up automatic item updates using schema.org markups. Can sound like something crazy, and I know that. Yeah, it's actually really great. If you are working with a merchant that has highly variable inventory, their stock is constantly changing, prices are super variable, this is highly recommended. So I would look into it. We'll go into it a little bit more, but I would really recommend putting the time into investigating automatic item updates because it can save a lot of headaches later on down the road. Also, another thing is setting up a fetch schedule. So if you are a merchant with moderately variable inventory, I would have their data feed be uploaded more than monthly.
Yeah, like I would always recommend weekly, even if you're not someone who has like food or anything that can go by like on a day-to-day basis, just because like slight changes, like we said, with availability or price is like the one little product that's out of stock, but in stock in your data feed, and you having to go through and find which product that is would be really annoying. If you just update and fetch your data feed more constantly, you won't have to go through that.
Exactly. And also keep an eye out for the availability status of your products, in stock or out of stock. There's also pre-order, but it has to be available for order. So you can't use that as a placeholder for out of stock. So just keep an eye on it. So microdata, this is the automatic item updates that we discussed a little before, the schema.org. It does not replace updating your feed. So you can't just turn that on and never update your feed. You still have to update your feed completely every 30 days. But it is, in my opinion, the easiest way to keep data fresh.
It's like a gut check, or not a gut check, like a backup plan.
Exactly. So one thing to note is that we need to, you could call it trust your microdata before we start using this. So put the time in to implement the markups, schema.org markups correctly on your website, because once you have it going, it's going to work really well for you. So setting up a fetch schedule, again, highly recommended to do this probably weekly, maybe daily. I know some people that set up fetch schedules more often than daily. I personally do not recommend doing that. It takes the system quite a while to process each data feed, even if we're using automatic item updates, even if there's not many changes. And so you can get yourself in a situation where if you are making quite a few changes and uploading your data feed like hourly, for example, it's going to take a really long time to push all of that information from Merchant Center through our review process and then into AdWords and then to your ads. So if you can avoid doing it more often than daily, that's highly recommended. If you're in a situation where you feel like you need to keep your data that fresh, look into automatic item updates.
Yeah.
Let us do this work for you. It is quite a bit faster, and you don't get caught in this kind of upload review cycle that I've seen some accounts get stuck in. One other thing to note, just be careful with the URL of the file location. Make sure it matches. This can be a little tricky. So if you have any questions, the Merchant Center Help Center is amazing.
Really
yeah, it's amazing with this stuff. So definitely feel free to use that resource. So there's a couple of different common pricing models. Really, the main takeaway is that the price that the user sees in the ad needs to be the most obvious price on the landing page. There's obviously certain situations where sites have drop-down menus, so different colors or sizes or options have different prices. That's totally fine. If possible, it would be great if the price of the product was pre-selected in that drop-down menu. If it's not possible, then it needs to be very easy for us to find.
Because you want to think about it like, if I'm the user and I'm expecting to pay $5 for your product, but I click on your ad, which charges you, and then I get to a page that says $10, I'm not going to buy that product if I expected to pay $5. So you want to make sure that the user's never kind of misinformed or unclear of where the product they want to purchase is.
Yep. Another thing is bulk pricing. So let's say I'm selling, bulk notebooks, right? And it is $1 per notebook, but you have to buy 50 to get that price. You actually need to list the fact that the price is $50 because the minimum order is 50 for $1 each. So in the data feed, you don't list the price per item, you list the price per minimum order of items. That's super important. I see a lot of people run into that.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So sales price, again, we talked about this a little earlier, but utilize it. If there's a sales price on the page, put that in your data feed. That way we know, okay, it might not be the most prominent price on the page, and there might be a secondary price on the page that's a little higher, but the sale price aligns with what the user is actually going to be paying for this item at this moment. And also product bundles. I would be careful with that. If you are bundling products, like buy, socks, a t-shirt, and a sweatshirt all in one, and it costs a certain amount, that you're going to need to sell as a bundle within your Merchant Center data feed. So just spend some time with the Help Center with product bundles and make sure that you're doing that correctly. Okay, so we are going to stop and see if we have any questions. Okay. So Peter is asking if the Amazon API works fine, or if he's using it, how would he be affected? Off the top of my head, I actually don't know how the Amazon API interacts with the Merchant Center account, but we can look into that and get back to you.
Yeah.
So we will definitely do that and expect to hear from us shortly on that one. In general, the AdWords API has some things that it works with really, really well with shopping ads and some things that it doesn't. So definitely make sure if you're using the AdWords API that you use the developer's guide and see what it does and doesn't work for. Okay, so we're going to get into generic landing pages. I've seen a lot of people run into this issue, relative frequency, and it's very easy to fix.
Yeah, and again, it's about user experience. So the PLA should link to item-specific landing pages. And so the item I want to see is loading quickly, and everything on the page is loading exactly how I would expect it to. Because again, I'm not going to purchase it if it's not the item that I thought I was looking at.
Exactly. So if I click on an ad for a t-shirt and I get taken to a page that shows 25 different t-shirts, that's not going to work. It needs to be the specific t-shirt that I clicked on. So another part of this is that this page needs to be visible in other countries. This is, if you recall during our landing page quality talk that we gave, we need to also have our reviewers be able to see your Merchant Center account and those landing pages. So regardless of the location of the customer, somebody needs to be able to access this site from anywhere in the world.
So it needs to be visible and the same. So sometimes what happens is the site is visible here in, let's say, Indonesia, but the products are different on the same landing page.
Or the price changes.
Or the price changes.
So if you're running into issues with this, definitely go ahead and reach out to the help team. This is something that can seem a little complicated, but in general, there's a ton of Google resources. Like I like GeoPeeker.
I love GeoPeeker.
Yeah, I use that a lot. So just double check that your site is available in other regions if you find yourself running into a generic landing page situation. Okay, different products on the landing page. This is a brand new, it's not a new policy. This has actually been a policy that has been around as long as I've worked with Merchant Center, but it is one that we have clarified recently. And so a lot of people have been running into enforcement issues with this. Essentially, if you're warned for having different products on your landing page, you have a product that has a lot of different variables that affect the price, tax, or shipping, and you're not defining it in your Merchant Center data feed. So a good example of this is something like a golf club, where it can be left-handed or right-handed. It can have different lengths of the club, different shaft strengths. So all of those variables impact the price, and they impact whether the club is available and how much tax and shipping are going to be paid by the user. In that instance, on your data feed, you need to define those variables. So if it's a left-handed, firm grip.
I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
Tall.
7-iron. You're going to want to make sure that that's the title of the product and that the price for the, left-handed firm 7-iron is the price that the user pays on that landing page when they go to the product. So please just be careful with this one. For best practices, you already have some attributes like size and color available in your data feed. So for people selling kind of clothing, like general retail, it's quite a bit simpler. You just go ahead and define the size and the color. Maybe an extra large is $5 more. Great. Put the XL in your data feed and have the price be $5 more. That solves that problem. For other variables that are not neatly fitting into the data feed, like left-handed or right-handed, you're going to want to put that in the item title. So just when in doubt, clarify about attributes.
And then remember Merchant Center Help Center and Google support line if you have any questions on anything.
Yep. Okay, let's see if we have any more. Custom labels. Okay, great question about custom labels. So custom labels are not really a part of Merchant Center policy, but what they do is they allow you to, within your AdWords account, delineate between certain groupings of products. So for those of you that aren't familiar, custom labels are an additional and optional attribute you can use in your data feed where you actually set a label that you define, whether it's like holiday or sale item, brand,
new item.
Exactly. And what you do is you import those with your data feed attached to an item. You have up to 5 different columns for custom labels. So there's quite a few combinations you can use. And then within your AdWords account, you can then use those as a variable to pull out groups of products. So let's say I know that all of my products from one brand are going to go on sale next week. I'll label them sale. Go ahead and make that ad group. So custom labels don't actually impact anything related to policy. You can name your custom labels however you want, use them however you like, but they are just super useful. Okay, so other common policies. How to prevent other types of warnings. So all the stuff that we talked about is not an exhaustive list of the things that could impact your Merchant Center account from a policy perspective. It is like all Google AdWords policies. We don't want the user to be misled by any content. So anything that makes it difficult for the user to fully understand the purpose of the landing page is going to potentially cause issues here. So a few ways to make sure that you don't run into this from the shopping perspective. Make sure you have a secure checkout process. This means you need to be SSL certified. So when I go through your checkout, that little tiny lock that is at the top of the URL bar needs to be there. This is just something you should have on your website.
And it shouldn't be on a pop-up. It needs to be on your actual website. So there was an issue before when a client had his pop-up SSL certified, but not the actual landing page. So it doesn't matter. The entire site needs to be.
Yep. You also need to have physical contact information for your business. There needs to be a physical address, phone number, or an email address, and you need 2 out of the 3. It cannot just be a form that says, hey, reach out to us, we'll reach back out to you. I need to be able to see your contact information. This holds for a lot of business models with Google AdWords, so it's just a best practice in general. Terms and conditions.
Yeah, this one I see a lot, no refund or return policy. Even if your policy is you do not accept refunds or returns, that needs to be on the site.
Yep.
The user just needs to know what your policy is in terms of your terms and conditions or terms of service.
Yeah, and anything that involves any sort of billing model needs to be super visible to users, very conspicuous. Essentially, if I'm on a website, before I enter any billing information, I need to know how I'm getting charged, what I can pay with, who I can contact if I have any issues.
How do I cancel if I want?
Yep, exactly. And then site functionality. If we can't complete a purchase on your website, you can't advertise on Google Shopping. Sorry.
Just make sure the button's there.
Yeah.
Make sure it works.
Exactly. It can't be like a call us to order. I need to be able to complete purchase on the website. Okay, let's see if there are any last questions. Okay, nothing else. So go ahead and feel free to add any more, you know, at the end, and we'll circle back to them. Definitely want to make sure that we cover everything. And as always, you have so many different resources you can use here. Tweet us, +1 us. Yeah, we'll tweet that. You have the community page. You also have YouTube, and you obviously have all the various help centers, Merchant Center and AdWords in particular in this instance, as well as your support help via chat, email, and phone. So definitely feel free to use your resources. We're always here to help out. And thank you so much for joining us for this series. So you can access all of these other videos on the community page or on the YouTube channel. Just to remind you, they covered billing and invoicing issues, ad approvals, landing page and site suspensions, and of course, Merchant Center suspensions. All super useful and valuable. So definitely let us know if there's anything else you're interested in hearing about. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.